Hey you, grab a seat and get ready for a super fun story. Imagine a bright, sunny day in a place called Oakwood Hills. The sky is blue, birds are singing, and everything feels happy. Kids are zooming around on their bikes, laughing and shouting. Neighbors are outside, cutting their grass, making it smell all fresh and green. It's the kind of day that makes you want to run outside and have an adventure. And that's exactly what Timmy Larson, a 12-year-old kid with a big smile, was doing. Want to know what happened? Stick around because this story is wild. Oh, and quick question, have you ever had a neighbor who got mad about something silly? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you love cool stories like this. Now let's talk about Timmy. Timmy wasn't just any kid, he was the kind of boy who loved to dream big. His head was always full of ideas, like building a rocket ship or inventing a robot dog. He had messy brown hair, a few freckles on his nose, and eyes that sparkled when he got excited. And boy, was he excited today. Why? Because he had something special, a brand new electric horn. It was shiny, silver, and looked like something a superhero might carry. Timmy had saved up his allowance for weeks to buy it. Every time he mowed the lawn or washed dishes, he put $1 in his piggy bank, dreaming of this horn. And now it was finally his. The horn wasn't just any toy. It made the coolest sounds ever. When you pressed the button, it went beep beep, like a fire truck racing to save the day, or sometimes it sounded like a big truck honking on the highway. Timmy thought it was the best thing in the whole world. He couldn't wait to try it out. So on this perfect Saturday morning, he ran outside to his driveway, holding his horn like it was a treasure. The sun was shining on it, making it sparkle. Timmy grinned. "This is gonna be so awesome," he said to himself. Oakwood Hills was a quiet little neighborhood. The houses were neat, with green lawns and colorful flowers. Kids played in the streets, and everyone knew each other. It was the kind of place where you could leave your bike outside and it'd still be there later. But not everyone in Oakwood Hills was super friendly. Nope, there was one person who made things a little less fun. Her name was Mrs. Karen Pritchard, and she lived right across the street from Timmy. Mrs. Karen wasn't like the other neighbors. She didn't wave or smile when you passed by. Instead, she watched everything like a hawk looking for its next meal. She was the president of the HOA, which stood for Homeowners Association. That meant she made rules for the neighborhood, like what color your mailbox could be or how tall your grass could grow. To Mrs. Karen, rules were everything. If you broke one, even a tiny one, she'd be at your door faster than you could say, oops. She carried a little notebook where she wrote down every single thing she thought was wrong. A kid's ball in the street, she'd write it down. A dog barking too loud, into the notebook it went. Nobody liked getting on Mrs. Karen's bad side. Mrs. Karen's house was perfect, of course. Her grass was always cut just right, her flowers were in straight rows, and her mailbox was the exact shade of blue the HOA rules allowed. She wore fancy glasses on a chain around her neck, and her hair was always tied up tight. When she walked around, her shoes clicked on the sidewalk, and kids would scatter like she was a storm cloud coming their way. To her, Timmy's new horn wasn't a fun toy. Oh no, to Mrs. Karen, it was trouble waiting to happen. Timmy didn't know Mrs. Karen was watching him that morning. He was too busy having fun. He stood in his driveway pressing the horn's butt. Beep beep, the sound bounced off the houses, loud and clear. Timmy laughed. It was even better than he'd imagined. He pressed it again. Honk honk, this time it sounded like a big ship sailing into a harbor. Timmy's little sister, Lily, who was only 6, ran outside to see what was going on. "Wow, Timmy," she said, clapping her hands. "That's so cool. Can I try it?" Timmy handed her the horn and Lily pressed the button. Beep, she giggled so hard she almost fell over. "It's like a magic noise maker," she said. Timmy nodded, feeling proud. He loved making his sister smile. The two of them took turns, pressing the button and laughing as the horn made all kinds of sounds. They weren't trying to bother anyone. They were just kids having fun on a sunny day. But across the street, Mrs. Karen's curtains twitched. She was watching, and she wasn't happy. Inside her house, Mrs. Karen was sitting by her window with a cup of tea. She liked everything to be quiet and perfect. When she heard Timmy's horn, her tea almost spilled. "What is that awful noise?" she muttered, pushing her glasses up her nose. She peeked out the window and saw Timmy and Lily in their driveway, laughing and playing with the horn. To most people, it would have looked like normal kid stuff, but to Mrs. Karen, it was a disaster. "That boy is ruining the neighborhood," she said to herself, grabbing her notebook. She wrote down, "Timothy Larson, loud horn, disturbing the peace." Mrs. Karen didn't like Timmy very much. She thought he was too loud, too messy, too much like a kid. She'd seen him riding his bike too fast or kicking a soccer ball into the street. Every time she'd shake her head and add it to her notebook. To her, kids like Timmy didn't belong in a proper neighborhood like Oakwood Hills. She wanted everything to be calm and quiet, like a picture in a magazine. But Timmy, he was full of energy and noise, and that drove her crazy. What Mrs. Karen didn't know was that Timmy wasn't just some noisy kid. Sure, he loved his horn and his big ideas, but he was also kind and brave. He helped his dad rake leaves, shared his snacks with his friends, and always made sure Lily wasn't left out. Timmy wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble was about to find him, and it wasn't just about his horn. See, Mrs. Karen had her own secrets, things she didn't want anyone to know. She thought she was in charge of everything, but this sunny Saturday was going to flip her world upside down. Timmy's dad, Mr. Larson, was another important person in this story. He was a tall guy with a friendly laugh who worked as a mechanic. He loved fixing cars and teaching Timmy how to use tools. But Mr. Larson was also smart about other things like rules and laws. He noticed Mrs. Karen being extra bossy lately. She'd been sending letters to neighbors, telling them to pay fines for silly things, like having too many Halloween decorations or parking their car in the wrong spot. Mr. Larson thought it was weird. "Something's not right," he'd told Timmy's mom one night. "I'm keeping an eye on her." Timmy didn't know about his dad's suspicions yet. He was too busy playing with his horn, making it go beep beep one more time. The sound rang out and a few neighbors looked out their windows, smiling. Old Mr. Jenkins, who lived next door, waved. "Sounds like a parade, Timmy," he called. Timmy waved back, feeling like the king of the driveway, but Mrs. Karen wasn't smiling. She was standing at her window, her face getting redder by the second. She didn't just want Timmy to stop, she wanted him to know she was in charge. The funny thing was, nobody knew what was coming. Not Timmy, not Lily, not even Mrs. Karen. This wasn't just a story about a kid and his horn. It was about a neighborhood that was tired of being bossed around. Timmy's loud beep beep was like a signal, waking everyone up. Mrs. Karen thought she could scare Timmy and make him feel small. She thought she could call the shots like always, but she was wrong. Today wasn't going to go her way. In fact, it was going to be a day nobody in Oakwood Hills would ever forget. Timmy pressed the horn again and the sound filled the air. Honk, Lily clapped and Timmy laughed, his heart full of joy. He didn't know Mrs. Karen was about to march across the street. He didn't know she'd make a big mistake that would change everything. And he definitely didn't know he was about to become the hero of Oakwood Hills without even trying. But that's how the best stories start, right? With a kid, a toy, and a sunny day full of surprises. So what do you think happens next? Can you imagine Mrs. Karen's face when things don't go her way? Keep watching because Timmy's adventure is just getting started and it's going to be a blast. Timmy stood in his driveway holding his shiny new electric horn. He pressed the button and it went beep beep. The sound was loud, like a fire truck zooming by, and it made him laugh. He wasn't trying to bother anyone. To Timmy, it was just a super cool toy, the kind of thing a kid like him dreamed about. The sun was shining, the air smelled like fresh grass, and he felt happy. But not everyone felt the same way. Across the street, trouble was brewing, and it had a name: Mrs. Karen Pritchard. Mrs. Karen was the boss of the HOA, which meant she made rules for the whole neighborhood. She loved rules more than anything, more than ice cream, more than sunny days, more than anything. To her, Timmy's horn wasn't fun. It was loud, annoying, and against her idea of a perfect, quiet street. She was inside her house, sipping tea when she heard the beep beep. Her cup shook in her hand and her face turned redder than a big, bright stop sign. "That boy," she grumbled, slamming her cup down. She marched to her window, pulled back the curtain, and glared at Timmy. Timmy didn't see her at first. He was too busy pressing the horn again. Honk, this time it sounded like a giant truck. His little sister, Lily, clapped and giggled. "Do it again, Timmy," she said, jumping up and down. Timmy grinned and pressed the button one more time. Beep, the sound bounced off the houses, and for a second it felt like the whole neighborhood was part of their game. But then, the front door of Mrs. Karen's house flew open with a bang. Out she came, stomping across her perfect lawn. Her shoes clicked on the sidewalk and her glasses bounced on the chain around her neck. "Timothy Larson," she shouted, her voice so sharp it could cut through a cloud. She pointed a long, bony finger right at him. "Turn that awful thing off right now or you'll be sorry." Timmy froze like a deer caught in headlights. His heart started thumping fast like a drum in his chest. He didn't mean to make anyone mad. He just wanted to have fun. It's just a toy," Timmy said, his voice small. He held the horn tight like it might protect him. Mrs. Karen's eyes got narrow and she crossed her arms. "A toy?" she snapped. "It's a nuisance. It's ruining the peace and quiet of this neighborhood." She took a step closer and Timmy felt like he was shrinking. Lily hid behind him, peeking out with wide eyes. Mrs. Coren's face was so red now it looked like it might pop like a balloon. "I'm calling the police," she said, pulling her phone out of her pocket. Timmy's mouth dropped open. The police? For a horn, he couldn't believe it. His hands got sweaty and he looked down at his toy, wondering if he'd done something really bad. "But I didn't do anything wrong," he whispered, mostly to himself. Mrs. Coren didn't care. She was already tapping her phone, muttering about disrespectful kids and breaking the rules. To her, Timmy wasn't just a boy with a toy. He was a problem that needed to be fixed. What Mrs. Coren didn't know was that someone else was watching the whole thing. Timmy's dad, Mr. Larson, was in the garage, wiping his hands on a rag. He'd been fixing his old car, but when he heard Mrs. Coren yelling, he stopped and looked out. Mr. Larson wasn't just any dad. He was a guy who paid attention. He knew a lot about rules and laws because he liked to read about them. And lately, he'd been noticing something funny about Mrs. Coren and her HOA. See, Mrs. Coren wasn't as perfect as she acted. She liked to boss everyone around, telling people what they could and couldn't do. She'd send letters saying, "Your grass is too tall," or "Your mailbox is the wrong color." Sometimes she even made people pay money for breaking her rules. Mr. Larson thought it was weird. He'd heard neighbors complaining about her, saying she was too strict. So he started watching her, keeping track of all the strange things she did. And now, as he saw her yelling at Timmy, he leaned against the garage door and smiled a little. "Oh, Coren," he said under his breath, "you're picking the wrong fight." Timmy didn't know about his dad's plan yet. All he knew was that Mrs. Coren was super mad and it scared him. He looked at Lily, who was still hiding behind him, and tried to be brave. "It's okay," he told her, even though he wasn't sure himself. Mrs. Coren was talking loud now, right into her phone. "Yes, hello," she said. "There's a boy in my neighborhood making a horrible noise with some kind of horn. It's awful. You need to send someone right away." Timmy's stomach twisted. He imagined police cars pulling up, lights flashing, all because of his toy. Would they take his horn away? Would he get in big trouble? Lily tugged on his shirt. "Timmy, are the police really coming?" she asked, her voice wobbly. Timmy didn't know what to say. He wanted to tell her everything would be fine, but Mrs. Coren's angry face made it hard to believe. "I don't know," he said quietly. "I hope not." He looked at his horn, feeling bad. Maybe he shouldn't have played with it so much. Maybe he should have known it would make someone mad. But deep down, Timmy didn't think he was wrong. It was just a toy and he was just a kid. Why was Mrs. Coren so mean about it? He glanced across the street at her perfect house with its perfect flowers and perfect mailbox. Everything about her seemed so grumpy. He wondered why she cared so much about a little noise. Didn't she ever have fun? Didn't she ever laugh? Mr. Larson was still watching from the garage, and his smile got a tiny bit bigger. He knew something Timmy didn't. Mrs. Coren wasn't just mad about the horn. She was mad because she liked being in charge, and Timmy's beep beep was something she couldn't control. Mr. Larson had a folder at home, full of papers, letters from neighbors, copies of Mrs. Coren's rules, and even some emails he'd sent to the city. He'd been waiting for the right moment to do something about her, and now it looked like that moment was getting closer. Mrs. Coren hung up the phone and put her hands on her hips. "You'll see, Timothy," she said, her voice sharp like a knife. "The police will take care of this. You can't just do whatever you want." She turned and marched back toward her house, her shoes clicking louder than ever. Timmy stood there, his heart still racing. He felt like he was in a movie, but not the fun kind. The kind where the bad guy was winning. Lily looked up at him. "What do we do now?" she asked. Timmy took a deep breath. He didn't know what was going to happen, but he wasn't going to let Mrs. Coren ruin his day. "We wait," he said, trying to sound brave, "and we don't let her scare us." He looked at his horn, still shiny in his hand. Maybe it wasn't just a toy. Maybe it was something bigger, a way to stand up to someone who thought she could boss everyone around. Timmy stood frozen in his driveway, clutching his shiny electric horn. His heart was thumping like a basketball bouncing fast. Mrs. Coren Pritchard, the grumpy HOA boss, was on her phone, talking loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "Yes, hello," she said, her voice sharp and angry. "There's a kid out here making a terrible noise with some awful horn. It's ruining everything. You have to send someone right now." She waved her arms, making sure everyone knew she was in charge. Timmy's stomach twisted into a big knot. He didn't mean to cause trouble. All he wanted was to have fun with his new toy. Timmy looked at his little sister, Lily, who was hiding behind him. Her eyes were big and scared. "Are we in trouble, Timmy?" she whispered. Timmy wanted to say no, but he wasn't sure. Mrs. Karen's words felt like a giant storm cloud hanging over him. He turned to his dad, Mr. Larson, who was standing by the garage. Timmy thought his dad might be mad about the horn, but instead Mr. Larson gave him a quick wink. "Don't worry, kiddo," he said softly so only Timmy could hear. "Let her dig her own hole." Timmy didn't know exactly what that meant, but it made him feel a tiny bit better. His dad's smile was like a warm blanket on a cold day. Mrs. Karen kept talking on the phone, saying things like disruptive and unacceptable. She made it sound like Timmy was the worst kid in the world, all because of his beep-beep horn. Timmy looked down at the horn in his hands. It was still shiny, still cool, but now it felt heavy, like it was causing all this mess. He wondered if he should hide it or say sorry, but deep down he didn't think he'd done anything wrong. It was just a toy, and he was just playing in his own driveway. Why was Mrs. Karen so mad? What Timmy didn't know was that Mrs. Karen wasn't as perfect as she acted. She liked to walk around Oakwood Hills like she owned every house and every lawn. She'd tell people their grass was too long or their flowers were too bright. If you didn't follow her rules, she'd send you a letter saying you had to pay money, a fine for breaking the HOA rules. Lots of neighbors were tired of it. They'd whisper to each other when Mrs. Karen wasn't around. "She fined me for my blue mailbox," one neighbor said. "She told me my dog's bark was too loud," said another. Nobody liked her sneaky tricks, but they didn't know what to do. Mr. Larson, though, was different. He wasn't scared of Mrs. Karen. He'd been watching her for months, noticing all the mean things she did. He started talking to neighbors, asking if they'd gotten weird fines too. He wrote down what they said and kept it in a special folder at home. One neighbor, Mrs. Gomez, told him Mrs. Karen charged her for having too many Halloween pumpkins. Another neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, got a fine because his car was parked an inch too close to the curb. Mr. Larson thought it was all fishy, like a puzzle with missing pieces. So he did something smart. He sent a letter to the city telling them about Mrs. Karen's strange rules. He didn't tell Timmy or Lily because he didn't want them to worry, but he was ready for something big to happen. Back in the driveway, Mrs. Karen hung up her phone with a big proud smile. "There," she said, crossing her arms. "The police are coming, Timothy Larson. You'll learn not to make trouble in my neighborhood." Timmy's eyes got wide. The police. His heart beat even faster now. He pictured sirens and flashing lights, all because he pressed his horn a few times. Lily grabbed his hand, squeezing it tight. "Timmy, I'm scared," she said. Timmy wanted to be brave for her, so he said, "It'll be okay, Lily. Dad's here," but inside he wasn't so sure. Just then something happened that made Timmy's jaw drop. A police car turned onto their street, moving slow and quiet. Its lights weren't flashing, but it was definitely real. Timmy's stomach did a flip. He thought the police were coming for him, just like Mrs. Karen said. He looked at his horn again, wondering if he'd made a huge mistake. Maybe Mrs. Karen was right and his toy was bad. He felt like running inside and hiding under his bed. But then he noticed something weird. The police car didn't stop at his house. It kept going right past his driveway and pulled up in front of Mrs. Karen's perfect lawn. Timmy blinked. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Timmy, look," she whispered. Mrs. Karen's smile faded like someone had turned off a light. She stood there, her arms still crossed, but now she looked confused. "What's this?" she said, mostly to herself. Two police officers got out of the car holding clipboards. They didn't even glance at Timmy or his horn. Instead, they started walking up Mrs. Karen's path straight to her front door. Mr. Larson stepped out of the garage, wiping his hands on his rag again. He wasn't smiling anymore, but his eyes were bright, like he knew something nobody else did. Timmy watched his dad, then looked back at Mrs. Karen. She was waving her hands now, talking fast. No, you're here for him," she said, pointing at Timmy. "That boy with the noisy horn." But the officers didn't turn around. They just kept walking toward her house like they had a job to do. Timmy's heart was still racing, but now it wasn't just from fear. He was curious. Why were the police at Mrs. Karen's house? What was going on? He looked at his dad again, and Mr. Larson gave him another wink. "Stay put, Timmy," he said quietly. "This is gonna be interesting." Timmy didn't know what his dad meant, but he felt a little spark of hope. Maybe he wasn't in trouble after all. Maybe something else was happening, something big. Across the street, a few neighbors started coming outside. Old Mr. Jenkins leaned on his cane, squinting at the police car. Mrs. Gomez peeked out her window, her eyes wide. It was like the whole neighborhood could feel something was up. Mrs. Karen's face wasn't red anymore, it was pale, like she'd seen a ghost. She kept talking to the officers, but her voice wasn't loud and bossy now. It sounded nervous, like she was trying to explain something. Timmy held his horn a little tighter. He didn't press the button, but he felt like it was part of this moment, like it had started something important. He didn't know everything yet, but he was starting to wonder if Mrs. Karen wasn't as powerful as she thought. Maybe her rules and her fines weren't so perfect. Maybe someone was finally standing up to her, and maybe, just maybe, his beep beep had helped make it happen. Timmy stood in his driveway, his electric horn still in his hands. His heart was beating fast, like he'd just run a race. Mrs. Karen Pritchard, the mean HOA boss, had just hung up her phone. She called the police, saying Timmy's beep beep horn was ruining the neighborhood. Now she stood there, arms crossed, with a big smirk on her face like she'd won a gold medal. "See, Timmy," she said, her voice sharp and loud. "That's what happens when you break the rules. The police will fix this." She pointed at him like he was the worst kid ever. Timmy's tummy felt all twisty. He didn't think his horn was bad, but Mrs. Karen made him feel small and scared. His little sister Lily was next to him, holding his sleeve tight. "Is she right, Timmy?" Lily whispered, her eyes big. Timmy didn't know what to say. He looked at his dad, Mr. Larson, who was standing by the garage. Mr. Larson wasn't mad. He was calm, like he knew something special was about to happen. Then everything changed. The police car was already there, parked in front of Mrs. Karen's perfect house. Two officers got out, holding clipboards. Mrs. Karen thought they were coming for Timmy, but they didn't even look at him. They walked right up to her, their shoes making soft thumps on her neat walkway. "Mrs. Pritchard," one officer said, his voice serious but not mean. "We're here about some complaints. Can we talk to you for a minute?" Mrs. Karen's smirk disappeared, like someone had erased it with a big eraser. Her mouth opened wide and her eyes got huge. "Complaints," she said, her voice wobbly now. No, you're here for him." She pointed at Timmy again, her finger shaking a little. "That boy with the noisy horn, he's the problem." But the officer shook his head, slow and steady. "No, ma'am," he said. "We got a call about a horn, sure, but that's not why we're here. We're here for you. It looks like your HOA has been breaking some laws." Timmy's jaw dropped so far it almost hit the ground. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The police weren't here for him, they were here for Mrs. Karen. Lily gasped and tugged his sleeve harder. "Timmy, what's happening?" she asked, her voice all squeaky. Timmy didn't answer, he was too busy staring. The whole street seemed to hold its breath. Neighbors were peeking out their windows now, their curtains twitching like butterfly wings. Old Mr. Jenkins stood on his porch, leaning on his cane. Mrs. Gomez opened her door a crack, watching with wide eyes. Mrs. Karen's face went pale, like she'd seen a ghost. "Laws," she said, her voice getting quieter. "What are you talking about? I run a perfect HOA. I keep this neighborhood nice." But the officer didn't look convinced. He flipped a page on his clipboard and started reading something, but Timmy couldn't hear it from his driveway. All he knew was that Mrs. Karen looked scared, and that was something he'd never seen before. Then Timmy's dad stepped forward and everything got even more exciting. Mr. Larson was holding a thick folder stuffed with papers. He walked toward the officers, calm as could be, like he was just going to say hi to a friend. "Officers," he said, his voice clear and strong. "I've got proof right here." He held up the folder and everyone, Timmy, Lily, the neighbors, even Mrs. Karen, stared at it. "Mrs. Pritchard has been doing some sneaky things," Mr. Larson went on. "She's been charging people money for fake rules, illegal fines, made-up laws, even signing people's names when they didn't agree. She's been scamming us all." Timmy's eyes got so wide they felt like soccer balls. Scamming, fake rules. He didn't know exactly what it all meant, but it sounded bad, like Mrs. Karen was being a big bully to the whole neighborhood, not just him. He looked at her, expecting her to yell or argue, but she didn't. Her hands dropped to her sides and her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. That's not true," she finally said, but her voice was weak, like she didn't believe it herself. The neighbors were coming out now, not just peeking anymore. Mr. Jenkins hobbled closer, shaking his head. "I knew it," he called out. "She fined me for my mailbox being too shiny." Mrs. Gomez stepped onto her lawn, nodding. "And she charged me for having too many flowers," she said. Another neighbor, Mr. Patel, joined in. "She told me my dog's leash was the wrong color," he said, sounding mad. It was like the whole street was waking up, realizing Mrs. Karen wasn't as perfect as she pretended. Timmy's heart wasn't thumping with fear anymore. It was thumping with something new. Excitement, maybe, or pride. He looked at his dad, who was handing the folder to the officers. Mr. Larson wasn't yelling or being mean. He was just telling the truth, and it was powerful. Timmy suddenly felt like his horn wasn't just a toy. It was like a superhero's gadget, starting something huge without him even knowing it. Mrs. Karen tried to talk again. "This is a mistake," she said, her voice louder now but still shaky. "I've done nothing wrong. I make this neighborhood better." But the officers didn't look like they believed her. One of them took Mr. Larson's folder and started flipping through it. "We'll need to look at this, ma'am," he said, "and we'll need you to answer some questions." Mrs. Karen's shoulders slumped and she looked smaller, like a balloon losing its air. Timmy couldn't stop staring. The woman who'd scared him just minutes ago, yelling about his horn and calling the police, wasn't scary anymore. She was in trouble, big trouble, and it wasn't because of Timmy's beep beep. It was because of all the mean things she'd done to everyone else. He felt a little sorry for her, but mostly he felt glad. Glad that his dad had been watching. Glad that the neighbors were speaking up. Glad that his horn had made enough noise to shake things up. Lily leaned closer to him. "Timmy, is Dad a hero?" she whispered. Timmy thought about it for a second, then smiled. "Yeah," he said, "and maybe we helped a little too." He held up his horn and it sparkled in the sun. For the first time since Mrs. Karen yelled at him, he didn't feel small or scared. He felt big, like he was part of something important. Officers were talking to Mrs. Karen now, and she was shaking her head, saying things Timmy couldn't hear. The neighbors were buzzing, whispering to each other, some of them smiling. Mr. Larson walked back to Timmy and Lily, putting a hand on Timmy's shoulder. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked. Timmy nodded. "Yeah, Dad," he said. "What's gonna happen to her?" Mr. Larson looked at Mrs. Karen, then back at Timmy. "She's gonna have to explain herself," he said, "and I think things are gonna change around here." Timmy looked at his horn one more time. It was just a toy, but it had done something amazing. It had made a noise so loud it woke up the whole neighborhood. And now Mrs. Karen's perfect little world wasn't so perfect anymore. Timmy stood in his driveway, still holding his shiny electric horn. His heart wasn't racing anymore. It felt big and happy, like it might burst with joy. The police officers were talking to Mrs. Karen Pritchard on her front lawn, and she didn't look like the bossy HOA president anymore. Her face was pale and her hands were shaky. The officers were writing things down, asking her questions, and it was clear Mrs. Karen was in big trouble. See, it wasn't just about Timmy's beep-beep horn. The officers told Mr. Larson that the city had been watching Mrs. Karen for weeks. Neighbors had been complaining about her mean rules and sneaky fines, and the city wanted to know more. Timmy's horn was like a loud alarm that gave the police a reason to come to Oakwood Hills right then and there. It was like the whole neighborhood had been waiting for this moment, and Timmy's toy helped make it happen. Mrs. Karen tried to explain herself. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, her voice all wobbly. "I just wanted the neighborhood to be nice," but the officers didn't seem to believe her. They kept looking at Mr. Larson's folder, the one full of proof about her fake rules and unfair fines. Timmy's dad stood nearby, calm and strong, watching it all unfold. Lily, Timmy's little sister, tugged on Timmy's shirt. "Is she going away?" she asked, her eyes wide. Timmy shrugged. "I don't know," he said. "But I think things are gonna be better now." And they were. By Monday morning, the whole neighborhood was buzzing with news. The neighbors had a big meeting and they voted Mrs. Karen out as HOA president. No more bossy letters, no more silly fines for things like too many flowers or a mailbox that was the wrong color. Everyone was tired of her tricks and they wanted someone fair to be in charge. They picked Mrs. Gomez, who always shared her homemade cookies and never got mad about kids playing outside. Timmy thought that was awesome. Timmy felt like a superstar, even though he didn't plan any of this. All he did was play with his horn, but somehow that little beep beep started something huge. His dad came over and ruffled his hair, smiling big. "You didn't just play a horn, Timmy," he said. "You played it loud enough to shake things up." Timmy grinned, his cheeks getting warm. He liked that idea, like his horn was a superhero's tool, waking everyone up to stand together. The neighbors were so happy, they decided to throw a little party that weekend. They set up tables in the park with lemonade, cupcakes, and music. Kids ran around playing tag while grown-ups laughed and talked. It was the kind of day that made Oakwood Hills feel like the best place to live. And guess what? Timmy's horn got its own special moment. Mr. Jenkins, the old man from next door, called Timmy to the middle of the party. "Let's hear that horn, kid," he said, waving his cane. Timmy was a little shy at first, but Lily pushed him forward. "Do it, Timmy," she giggled. So Timmy held up his horn, shiny in the sunlight, and pressed the button. Beep, beep, the sound rang out loud and proud like a victory song. Everyone cheered, clapping and whistling. Mrs. Gomez raised her lemonade glass and shouted to Timmy and his horn. The whole crowd laughed and clapped some more. Timmy's face turned red, but he was smiling so big it hurt. He felt like he was 10 feet tall. After the party, things in Oakwood Hills were different. Kids could ride their bikes without worrying about Mrs. Karen's notebook. Neighbors planted extra flowers and painted their mailboxes fun colors just because they could. Timmy still played with his horn sometimes, but nobody got mad. It was like the neighborhood was free to be happy again, and Timmy's beep had helped make it happen. Lily ran up to Timmy as they walked home from the party. "You're a hero, Timmy," she said, hugging him. Timmy laughed. "Nah," he said, "I just have a cool horn." But deep down, he felt proud. He looked at his dad, who gave him a thumbs up. "You did good, kid," Mr. Larson said. Timmy nodded, holding his horn tight. It wasn't just a toy anymore. It was a reminder that even a kid could make a big difference. Wow, what a day that was for Timmy. His little horn went beep beep and turned his whole neighborhood upside down in the best way. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. Sometimes the tiniest things, like a kid with a loud toy, can start something huge. Mrs. Karen thought she was the boss of everyone in Oakwood Hills. She thought she could make rules and scare people into doing what she wanted, but she was wrong. Even a quiet place like Timmy's Street has heroes, and they're ready to stand up when things aren't fair. Timmy didn't know he was going to be a hero when he woke up that sunny morning. He was just a kid who loved his new horn. He wasn't trying to make anyone mad or change the world. But that's the cool thing about life. Sometimes just being yourself can make a big difference. When Mrs. Karen yelled at him, Timmy felt scared. Who would? She was loud and mean, and she made him feel small, but he didn't give up. He held onto his horn and he stayed brave, even when he didn't know what would happen next. That's something we can all learn from. Maybe you're not holding a shiny horn, but you've got your own kind of beep beep, something that makes you special. It could be your voice, your ideas, or just the way you smile at someone who's sad. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't matter. Mrs. Karen thought she could push everyone around, but she forgot that even kids like Timmy have power. When he played his horn, it wasn't just noise. It was like a shout that said, "I'm here and I'm not going away." So what do you do when someone tries to boss you around or make you feel small? You remember Timmy. You stand tall even if your knees are shaking.